Hey guys, thanks so much for watching Common Sense Culture. I'm James, hope you're having a wonderful day. The headband is back, as you can see. Whenever I wear a t-shirt, I'm more likely to wear the headband. If I'm wearing a button-down shirt, I'm more likely to wear the hat. But until my hair grows back, I'm probably going to be wearing something because I don't really like my hair in this transitionary phase. So I know I've been a little bit lacking on the practical videos, some of the stuff that I'm doing for gardening, some of the stuff, doing for compost and all that. Been a little bit lacking on the practical stuff and a little bit more on the talking videos. Really that's just because we, kind of like my hair, are in a bit of a transitionary phase. We might be moving into an RV on some land. More to come on that if that works out. I don't really want to talk too much about it while we're in this phase, but it's making it a little bit difficult. All we're doing now on the land is I'm raking up all those wood chips, the 3 dump truck loads of wood chips that I put out on my ground. I'm raking it all up, having some friends come help me sift through that, separate the compost that's already been formed, then the wood chips, and if this is gonna work out, I have to get a truck. By the way, if you're selling a truck that tows at least 10,000 pounds, let me know. Selling our car, getting a truck, then we'll get an RV. If all that works out, then we're going to move all the stuff. I'm trying to grow some grass where we have some bald spots. That way it's easier to get someone else to rent the land that we're on. So anyway, I'm talking a little bit more in my videos, doing some more talks. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you do. Hopefully it's not too boring. My next 2 ones, I think I have some interesting ideas. So in today's video, I want to talk about the real reason it's inappropriate to use the term libtard. Alright, so I live in America, as I've mentioned many times before. It's a very, we're very divided politically. It seems like over time, the Republican and Democratic parties have become more and more violent towards each other, verbally, sometimes physically and all that. So, you hear terms like libtard thrown around, and most of the time when someone makes an argument for, hey, you shouldn't use that term, you can disagree, but you shouldn't call people libtards. It's a combination of liberal and retard, which is short for mentally retarded or mentally challenged. The idea behind it being, if you're liberal, then you are mentally challenged. So there's a lot of arguments that already go around about how it's just not nice, it's not kind, it's not a good way to discourse. And for most of us, I would say that's probably a fairly good argument. But then the problem comes with that can't be an absolute rule, because Jesus called people brood of vipers and he insulted people. Libtard is an insult, but you can't say that insulting people by definition, if you're a Christian. I mean, this is an Orthodox channel, so I'm specifically coming from that perspective. You can't make the argument absolutely that because something is not nice or because it's an insult that it's wrong, because Jesus insulted people. Some of our saints, insulted people. For the most part, Saint Nicholas was one of the most kind, obviously very gracious people. But when Arius was insulting the Godhead in the council, I mean, he went to physical blows. And the council, they put him in prison, but then he was justified. Basically God revealed that he was right. So insulting can't in and of itself be a bad thing. I would say most of us probably should not insult. I think it's a very specific calling to be the type of person who, like a prophet. A prophet comes across every once in a while and may play a harsher and harder role within the society to bring it to repentance, to bring things around. But for the most part, most of us need to be focusing, I mean, all of us do, but we need to be focusing on our own salvation. We need to be focusing on our own issues and problems, and not really insulting people. But once again, you can't make the argument that in and of itself insulting is wrong. So what is the real reason why the term libtard is pretty much wrong, not a good term to use, is because it's secular. It's a secular term. You would only use it from a secular worldview. So, I've already said the implication is that if you're a liberal, then you are mentally challenged. That's the only conclusion. If you look at nature, if you have common sense or whatever, it's just obvious that the liberal view is wrong. Well, there's some things to be said about that, in that modern liberalism, modern progressivism kind of has this weird idea that nothing is really based on continuity throughout history. I can say 99% of all people who have ever lived have looked at nature and understood God exists, the divine exists. That has just been the reality. Well, we live in a very liberal, progressive, modern society, and that argument means nothing. It's like, because 99% of all people have lived, that's the exact reason why we don't believe in God, because it's obviously a backwards and behind the times way of thinking, because it happens to be the year 2020, or it happens to be the 21st century. Obviously, if there are more atheists now than there were before, then that means that God must not exist, because modern times are obviously better than previous times, and so that's our understanding. So it's just a very weird way of thinking that we have these days. But part of that is, the more conservative people who use the terms libtard. The idea behind that is, it's just obvious that the liberals are wrong. The problem is, truth has always been, the separation of church and state is an entirely new concept. Every state has been based on some sort of moral law, and that means a religion has been based on some sort of, the divine has revealed moral truth to us, and that's how we understand what is true. Well, America tried to get away from that and say we can just come up with morality without not necessarily referring to God, but without a specific religion or a specific revelation to tell us. So it's based on this idea that truth and what is right and wrong is just obvious, and you just must be stupid if you don't understand. And that's the whole division between the left and the right now, is because it's secular. The idea that you don't need God, you don't need God's revelation to tell you what is right and wrong. It's just obvious. And so if you are a liberal, then you are mentally challenged. If you are conservative, then you don't have a heart. You don't understand. Obviously, if you had all the facts, if you knew all the scientific studies that I knew, if you knew the information I do, then you would just automatically agree. And that's just not the case. And it's a result of secularism. And so, the same thing that makes liberals wrong is the same reason why libtard is incorrect. It's a secular concept. The idea of the separation of church and state just is not going to hold up. And it doesn't hold up. You either have, what we've seen is on one end, more and more people saying this or that form of morality. If it can't be perfectly justified just on what is obvious, then it must not be true. And so you see more and more things that every culture, every country, every language, every time period has always understood to be wrong. All of a sudden now we're saying, well, it can't be wrong because we can't prove that it's wrong just based on what's obvious or not. Because if I can make up an argument for why this is not wrong, then it must not be wrong. Because the only things that are wrong are things that are obviously wrong and that nobody could deny if they were reasonable. So back to the point, liberals are not wrong because they're just mentally challenged, and therefore the term libtard is just completely inappropriate, not necessarily because it's insulting, although, you know, there's a good argument for that for most people, but because it's a secular idea, that, you know, you must be wrong because you disagree with me, because, you know, truth is just obvious. It's wrong. Liberals are wrong because God, through the law, the prophets, and then primarily through Christ, has revealed the fullness of truth, the fullness of right and wrong, and that truth has been preserved by the church, has been preserved through time by the church. The correct understanding, the correct interpretation of the scriptures, of morality that has been you know, given by God, has been preserved through the church. So if you have your own interpretation of scripture, of Christianity, that goes against, you know, what, you know, Christians have always believed, you know, then yeah, I mean, you have to base it on, you know, Christianity is based on your own understanding of things, and, you know, this isn't going to be applicable to you. But if you're an Orthodox Christian, or, you know, even someone who's trying to be consistent, trying to be connected with, you know, the truth, the understanding of Christianity that has been consistent through the centuries, you know, the secular idea that a government can understand what's right and wrong in order to create laws, or that an individual can understand what's right and wrong to create, you know, a morality to impose on themselves and others, you know, just based on, you know, what is just obvious around you. You know, that is secularism. That's this idea that you don't need direct revelation to decide what is right and wrong. And so, you know, if you are a Christian and your identity is, you also have an identity as a Republican or a Democrat or a, you know, leftist or a rightist, a capitalist or a socialist, or, you know, you're wrong. You know, these ideologies are not the truth. It doesn't mean that you can't ever vote Democrat or can't vote Republican, but you can't be a Republican. You can't be a Republican and be a Christian. You can't be a Democrat and a Christian. You can't serve two masters. That means, you know, yes, you have to decide who to vote for. You know, you don't have to, but, you know, if you're going to vote, you know, yeah, like you're probably going to vote for a Democratic or Republican Party or a, you know, one of the other parties, but that can't be your identity. You can't identify as a Republican and be a Christian. It's just not a possibility. You can't, you know, identify as a liberal and be a Christian. It's just not possible. You're a Christian. You are a follower, and even more so than a follower, but you are an embodier of Christ. And so that is your identity, not any political party, not any form of economic, you know, theory or anything like that. You know, it's impossible to identify as those things and be a Christian. And so that's the reason that, you know, libtard is an incorrect usage. Thanks so much for watching. Click the thumbs up. Please click the thumbs up if you liked the video. If you didn't like the video, please leave a comment. Let me know why. Maybe we can talk about it. And if you're not already, please click the subscribe button. You can always unsubscribe later. But I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless.